너무 오래 걸렸어요. 6년이나 걸렸죠 이제. 저는 그냥 근데 결승 때도 되게 걱정을 많이 했어요. 아무래도 팀이 없다 보니까 지네어보다는 팬덤이 좀 딸릴 거 아니에요, 많이. 근데 장난 아니더라고요. 지네어보다 컸어요, 제가. 현수막 사전 제작하는데 일단 이신영 선수를 좋아하게 된 계기가 게임을 잘하는 게 1순위고 또 무표정 그 표정이 전 너무 좋아요. 너무 집중하는 것 같고 제가 요청을 했어요. 일단 이왕 현수막 제작할 거면 제 얼굴보다는 이신영 선수 얼굴 넣어가지고 하는 게 좋을 것 같다고 해서 제가 이신영 선수한테 물어봤어요. 흔쾌히 허락해 주셔가지고 그걸 팬분들한테 말씀드렸더니 팬분들이 또 SK T1 사무국에 또 허락받고 해서 되게 고맙게도 이렇게 허락해 주셔가지고 진짜 그 1세트 지고 나서 그거 보고 힘내서 이겼어요. 근데 제가 이번에 결승전 VOD를 보는데 김유진 선수는 막 지니어 선수들 조성주, 김도하고 코치들 들어오는데 저는 혼자 물만 마시고 있더라고요. 그래서 그거 보고 좀 씁쓸하다 생각했는데 결국 뭐 제가 이겼으니까 뭐 저는 프로게이머라는 직업이 있는지도 몰랐어요. 그때 처음 본 경기가 박성준 선수 대 전상욱 선수였어요. 그 경기 보고 좀 그냥 멋있다 생각하고 전 솔직히 프로게이머가 되고 싶다는 마음은 없었거든요. 근데 어느새 막 제가 팀 일단 테스트 보고 있고 어느새 프로게이머 되고 그렇게 됐어요. 그렇게 되다가 스타2 와서는 선수들도 그렇고 팬들도 그렇고 다 온라인에서 되게 잘한다 하니까 전 진짜 잘하는 줄 알았어요, 제가. 근데 오프라인만 가면 이게 안 되는 거예요. 되게 긴장을 엄청 많이 해요, 제가. 항상 청심환도 먹고 그러는데 이건 어떻게 할 수가 없더라고요. 제가 공백 기간 가진 이유가 가장 큰 이유가 제 실력에 대한 자신이 없었거든요. 되게. 온라인에서는 잘하는데 왜 오프라인만 가면 이렇게 못하는지 저도 이해를 못했어요, 솔직히. 그러니까 내가 진짜 잘하는 게 아니구나 그 생각 때문에 너무 진짜 스트레스를 많이 받았죠.
The only things I ever really heard about ByuN during his missing years was that he kind of had some anxiety issues, he was having a hard time. When I heard that, I just thought, okay, well, he can't keep up, that's fine, you know, that happens all the time to pro gamers. But I mean, boy, were we wrong about that.
원래 전 나올 생각이 없었거든요, 공원 예선도. 근데 중국에 갈 기회가 생겼어요. 근데 비자를 따르면 서울에 올라가야 돼요. 근데 딱 그때 예선을 하는 거예요. 그래서 비자도 딸 겸 예선 나가보자 했는데 그 예선을 운 좋게 뚫어가지고 거기서 터닝 포인트가 시작됐죠. 그래서 신기했죠, 좀 되게. 엄청 오랜만에 2년 3개월 만에 복귀한 건데 잘해진 게 맞는 건가 싶기도 하고 취미로 보고 있는데 경기장 가서 너무 긴장되는 거예요. 그러니까 뭐 음악이라도 들어야겠다 했는데 그래서 피아노 같은 거 치는 거 그거 듣는데 되게 좋은 거예요. 이게 효과가 있는 것 같아요. 그래서 좀 관심이 많아졌죠. 팀에 소속될 때랑 다른 점은 제가 스타리그 결승을 직관에 갔거든요. 삼성 선수들이 올라와서 꽃다발 이렇게 막 전해주고 하는데 그거 보고 많이 좀 서운했죠. 그리고 팀원들이랑 새벽에 나가서 야식 먹는 걸 되게 좋아하거든요. 그걸 못하는 게 좀 아쉽기도 하고. 근데 저는 진짜 자랑스럽다고 생각해요. 전 팀이 있을 때도 이렇게 성적을 못 냈거든요. 무소속 됐는데 결승에다가 우승까지 했잖아요. 이게 브루드워 포함 최초라고 하더라고요. 전 진짜 뿌듯했어요, 그 기록 듣고.
It's just nothing like it has ever happened, and it kind of opens up a new world of possibilities.
선수 생활 내내 우승 한번 못하는 선수 되게 많은데 저는 완전 너무 그러니까 딱 스타2 하면 변현우 생각나게 이런 건 너무 바라지도 않고 너무 잘 되고 싶진 않아요. 저는 무소속 그러니까 스타1, 스타2 최초 무소속 우승 변현우 딱 이 정도가 좋은 것 같아요.
A wonderful 6-year story we've seen from ByuN, played in the very, very first GSL and is now the most recent champion. This is a remarkable journey that he's had over these years. I remember way back when he was playing and, you know, just watching that video, we can see that development. And he's a contender for the championship, not just for this group, a clear favorite for the group, but a contender for the entire thing.
And what an amazing continuation of that story would be. I know we've talked a lot about this, but guys, $200,000 is a lot of money. A lot of money. And for someone, he now does have a team, by the way, but it still kind of feels like that one-man army thing where it's like, he's not quite a self-made man because he's been a part of other organizations as well, but he kind of has that feeling, you know?
Yeah.
And when he wins, you see so much emotion, you see so much passion, that it's just, you can't help but to get behind him. I've watched a lot of StarCraft in my day, and I've never really felt as much of a pull as I do to him for these reasons. Like, I feel like he's a cool human being that's out there working really hard, and that represents a lot of what I like about StarCraft.
And Nathanius, I know you're a big Terran fan, you're a big ByuN fan.
He's been the banner carrier for Terrans this year. Every step of the way, someone's like, how do we beat Ultras? How do we deal with this? How do we deal with that? Just watch ByuN. He makes it look easy. Every single thing that you think is difficult about this game, he makes it look trivial. His builds are perfect. If you want to learn this game, you learn from him. If you want to see a Terran make a deep run in a tournament, he's been your guy all year long, and he has been awesome to watch, and also one of the best streams to watch.
And I asked that because you are a Terran player, but the thing is with ByuN, is he's inspiring to a lot of other players, other races. Kev, you play Protoss, and I know that you're also inspired by what he can do.
No, absolutely, especially the semifinals he had against Deer. I've said this many times in some of the other broadcasts, but when I watched that, I could not believe what I was watching. I was like, I've seen a lot of good StarCraft in my days, but what ByuN is showing us here is just unreal. The value he gets out of every drop, how he always has a follow-up, how he has like an escape route for everything, or has backup coming for his initial drop. I love watching this guy, and like Nate said, a good stream, I think it's an understatement. Like, if you want to know how it is to just win every single game you play, you should watch this guy. It's ridiculous. Like, it feels like it takes no effort. And then there's always people like, well, he plays at an awkward time, it's easier. Winning 47 games in a row is not easy. We have never been there. Like,
this guy's
it's it's like a few people you know who drop a couple of leagues and play a couple of levels below where they play, and they're like,
Still is the game.
streaming's easy. You just win, and he actually does do it at his
ByuN's
level.
idea of a fun Friday night is grinding 50 games, getting rank 1 Grandmaster on Korea, and then leaving League and doing it again the next day. That's this guy's like, you want to get pizza and watch a football game? No, this is how I roll.
While wearing a shirt that says Brooklyn, we go hard. I love that. More power to him.
And he really is a clear favorite for this group. I mean, he's head and shoulders above everybody else. We got to switch our focus. viOLet. Okay, so I mean, viOLet is at an interesting, not just year, but I think few years.
Everything's interesting about him.
That's right. You could say that.
Yeah.
2012, obviously his big year where he was winning trophies, and since then he hasn't been the same player. He's gotten a couple of sparkling results, but he's not the same.
Yeah, very weird, like ups and downs. I remember in 2014 he suddenly had a good run, I believe, at MLG Anaheim, and he had a couple of other tournaments where it's like, hey, viOLet is still super relevant. He's actually still better than the foreigners. And then the next tournament, like, nah, he's not. This year, I really have mixed feelings about viOLet here. Like, he's been high up in the WCS rankings pretty much throughout the entirety of the year, but that's mostly because he made top 8 at the very first season championships. He played well in Poland, deserved it. Some people say a little bit of bracket luck, but I think he just played well back then. Had a good series against Marine Lord. But for the rest of the year, I don't know. There was one performance in particular that stood out for me. There was Intel Extreme Masters Shanghai. Took care of a super hot nerd show who just won Valencia. I was like, wow, okay, did not see that coming. But other than that, like, I'd be lying if I said that viOLet is at the best year or was super consistent.
He's always been a bit of a threat in like ZVZ in particular, to your point, so he could take out a player like Nurchio. But yeah, everything Kevin said I agree with, but even beyond that, he was an early adopter of going to America and playing the WCS system, leaving behind Korea and actually getting better outside of Korea, which was kind of interesting. In Korea, I didn't think he was that flashy of a pro gamer that probably wasn't going to make it very far. Goes abroad, does very well. And then we've had that ebb and flow. He's been sick sometimes. He's gone back to Korea, then had a tough time getting back. But I think the one thing you can say about him that I do like as his chance to make a difference in this group is what a wild card he is. He's the kind of guy who, like ByuN back in the past as well, would just make pure burrowed roaches in ZVT. And it seems weird, but his multitasking's pretty good. His ability to be aggressive where you wouldn't think you would be aggressive also can throw people off. I do feel like he's being put up against a bit of a juggernaut where in the past we've been like, you can be wild and crazy. And the juggernaut's just like, LOL, I'm better than you. And it doesn't matter. But maybe against a Deer making some weird choices, maybe against a Showtime, if he gets bounced down, he could be a threat. In this one, I see it as more lopsided, in my opinion, than Petit Drogo against Dark. I actually think this might be the biggest mismatch of the first 2 days.
Agree.
Yeah. When you look at these guys, you think about what makes a Terran player great and successful. You know, in the old days, you would have been like, well, Innovation was just a mechanical monster. He did everything perfect, but he had his flaws. He didn't have the most range. He was extremely predictable. And I think back to one of those GSL finals where he just lost like a Roach Banal in 3 games because he's just like, yeah, I refuse to do anything other than open 3 command centers. But ByuN has range. If you watch this guy play, he has crazy builds against Protoss. He's not afraid to cheese you. And against somebody like viOLet, if he tries to play straight up, I mean, ByuN's just going to run him over because he does have those mechanics. Like, if I had to make a build prediction for this series, like 2-1-1 all day, like viOLet needs to come into this knowing like he has to do something really incredible to throw ByuN off his A game. And because ByuN doesn't always do the same build, because ByuN has so much range, so much variety, there's very few situations you're going to put this guy in where he's like, oh, I've never been here before. It's like, no, he does all sorts of crazy stuff. And because he's such a ladder monster as well, he's seen everything. There's nothing that viOLet's going to show him this game. He's going to be like, well, that's new. I don't see it. I don't see it happening.
viOLet's, he's out there, man.
Well, I'm just here to show my bias as hard as I can because I spent the first day here without a Terran player, so
You're getting
I'm
fed.
ready.
Be another one later.
I'm ready.
Kev, last thoughts before
No,
we...
I want to say exactly what Nate said in the end. It's not just that he has a wide range and variety in his builds. He plays so incredibly much that there aren't many scenarios he's not familiar with. Of course, viOLet plays a little different than some of the other macro Zergs, but there's always that guy that kind of plays like it. And ByuN, he's seen it now, and I feel like most of the time his playstyle is so smart that he always has map presence. So nothing truly catches him off guard. Very rarely will you watch a game of ByuN, and whether it's his stream or an official game, where he's sitting on his side of the map and he has no idea what's happening. That doesn't happen. Good players always have something happening, and that's why he knows and he's able to react in time. Yeah, I don't know how to spin this one. Like, I think ByuN is an overwhelming favorite.
Even in Artosis Curse couldn't say that.
We can ask him. Man, if that would happen, like 2 violence.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen.
powerful!
Thank you very much, gentlemen. It seems like it's written on the walls for this one, but we'll find out. We're going to be jumping into it immediately after this break.
The StarCraft II WCS Global Finals is sponsored in part by Intel, T-Mobile, NVIDIA, and Republic of Gamers.
What's up, guys? We're about to go into this match. It's going to be pretty sick. I'm really excited to see how ByuN's going to be doing here.
Yeah, he's been playing out of his mind recently, of course, with that GSL victory, non-stop online tournaments, streaming a bunch of his ladder matches, and like this guy at command, at will, can go to the top spot in the Korean ladder. So definitely a favorite coming into BlizzCon. It's going to be a tough road for viOLet.
And we're going to go right into this game. This is going to be ByuN versus viOLet. And, but viOLet could take it, but, I'm still riding that ByuN hype train from that last GSL victory. The first guy to win a GSL Code S. And here he is right now in the upper left, a GSL Code S without being on a team. In the red, he is ByuN. And his opponent down here in the bottom right in the blue, he is viOLet.
All right. There's a lot of talk about ByuN because he is such a favorite, but viOLet is not here because he's a bad player, okay? He's gotten very high in the Korean ladder as well. I saw that he was practicing quite a bit there recently. So his skills should be quite high, and he's a very clever player. So maybe he's going to have something up his sleeve, because here's the thing about ByuN, and this is why I'm worried about him. And for me, he's like my 4th pick to do well in the tournament. Like,
really?
Yeah, like, because he's shown so many games and he's not really altering his style. He's just like, this is what I do. And when you know what he does, which is pretty easy to find out for viOLet, I think you might be able to have some stuff planned that could give him some trouble.
It's also important to note that this guy didn't have a ton of success for a while, okay? And when you reach this point where, okay, you're winning a GSL Code S, everybody is watching your games. That also takes a little while to get over to where you can randomize and adjust your style of play. Now, that being said, ByuN's style of play, I think, is very focused on the micro, if you will.
It very much is.
His strats are obviously very clean, but really he outcontrols his opponent. But we'll see. Obviously, viOLet's had a lot of VODs out there to study. He might have something that he can counter ByuN with early on.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for here from viOLet. I think that's really the trick to winning. Like, generally, ByuN just goes directly for a 2 barracks with reactor medevac stim timing attack, and just like, he's like, okay, I'm going to out-micro and out-maneuver you around the map and just keep that pressure on while expanding. So, that's kind of what I'm expecting to see for the most part from ByuN throughout this entire tournament against Zergs. And they should know that. If viOLet just dies right away to it, it's like, well, I mean, I guess this is a mismatch.
With ByuN, the way that he controls his units, I swear, if his micro was that good right at the start of Wings of Liberty,
Yeah.
Terran would look completely different.
That's true.
ByuN makes it look almost too powerful.
Yeah.
Especially like Marauder control, for instance.
Yeah.
The stuff he does with that is insane. But his Marine control as well, and the way he was able to maneuver his medevacs, it's really impressive.
Absolutely.
So,
If you were to transport him back in time, Terran would have had been nerfed so many times.
the
It would have been
Marauder had been
crazy.
removed from the game, I actually
Yeah.
bet you. It would have been just like, this
Yeah.
is ridiculous. But of course now everybody's so
I wish
good at
we
the
could
game.
send him back in time.
That's right.
Get the game just how I want it. But viOLet just kind of checking right now as to what's going on. And I mean, he doesn't see everything, but he does see the reactor, and that kind of points towards what he normally does.
Yeah, he'll start poking out here in a little bit. As far as viOLet is, I do wonder what kind of strats he's got in store, for ByuN, because viOLet, I would say his standard Zerg play, it's obviously very good, or he wouldn't be here. But I think a lot of the more sneaky stuff he's done is maybe a little bit scary. Sometimes the more aggressive stuff.
Yeah, and wouldn't be surprised if we see him try some stuff like that. It's just, what exactly will it be? Because the thing is, micro players that are like really good at micro generally tend to get a good amount of units early on because it plays into their strength.
Right.
And that is like, if he has a bunch of units early on and he's great at micro, then how do you end up killing him, right?
Right.
It has to be like a
I
strategic
guess
hard
that's true.
counter.
You'd have to find somebody comparable in unit control to practice with.
Yeah.
And when you have the very, very best in the world, there really isn't anybody that's going to compare.
Yeah, no, right?
You know?
It's like viOLet, you better have been practicing with Maru, because that's about as close as we can get to ByuN.
Exactly.
It's like there's not like a whole lot of other choices out there.
It's funny in another way, too, because normally throughout all of StarCraft history, we very rarely, have players that cheese and get to the very, very top and are more cheesy than others. Most of the time, it's people that are well-rounded.
Yeah.
And the other one that happens that's, in this case, rare is a player that just wins with impeccable control.
Yeah.
And so this is like one of these hybrid champions that's really tough.
Yeah, he's like
to go
super
against.
good at everything, but his super power is, the fact that he's so good at micro. Like, we've seen that in the past. Like, Parting can do everything, but he's a micro player.
Yeah, he was a micro player. And then you look at somebody like, for instance, MVP, who was more of a well-rounded guy, could kind of do it all. But with ByuN, this is going to be, I think, pretty tricky for viOLet. But let's see. I mean, ByuN, a lot of pressure on him. He did say he had problems with nerves, earlier on. And this is definitely probably the most nerve-wracking thing you can be doing in StarCraft 2.
BlizzCon, man.
Yeah, fighting to get to BlizzCon.
Now, looking at this is exactly the play that ByuN basically does every game here, so he's unbelievably good at it. Now, +1 carapace is almost done, but not quite ready from viOLet, so that would really help if it was done. Instead, he's going to lose all of his Zerglings, getting almost nothing, almost no damage there. 3 Marines lost against 42 Lings. Like, the difference is astounding.
Okay, he's starting to push out here. He might try to fish out more of those Lings. Now, Stimmy coming forward. And he's just going to do the optimal amount of damage. And remember, one other thing with ByuN is he juggles so well in and out with the Marines to the medevacs. But with a player like that, they also never overextend. That's why it's scary.
Well, they learn exactly what they're capable of doing, and this is actually already a little bit sad with how far ahead ByuN is getting. Like, the fact that his Marines so far have killed like 50 Zerglings. And the thing is, viOLet started a very early evolution chamber and tried to get +1 carapace, and it just barely wasn't done. And then he just kept hemorrhaging Lings. So, looking at this, now that's a nice little catch right there, but right now I'm looking at this game, and ByuN is in a fantastic spot. He has to be completely happy with where he's at.
A lot of times when Terrans do this, they're trying to see how much damage they can do, and then they'll eventually pull back and take a third. But in this case, he might be able to go all the way. He's actually coming up here right now, stimming, and the Banelings aren't done. Siege Snake Fire is going down. Not enough Lings here to tank this damage. Queens are now being taken out. Banelings right before they're able to finish. It looks like most of them will be taken out. And viOLet's attacks here to try to stop this are too fractured. Oh my God, GG. Okay, that was really fast.
So that is literally exactly what everyone has been talking about.
Yep.
He does, he has little variations after he gets the 2 medevacs with the Marines. Here he got some tanks and more Marines and followed it up. But that was ByuN just showing his micro. And it was so good that viOLet completely fell apart against it. And looking at that first game, because this was so standard from ByuN and viOLet died so hard, I mean, can viOLet possibly beat ByuN in this next game? I guess it's possible. Maybe an all-in is what he needs to try, because it seems like in the standard game, ByuN is just a level up.
You know, when you look at a game like that, it looks like what ByuN did was really basic, but that's not the case at all. Any Terran player can open like that, but nobody can execute it as perfectly as ByuN. I don't know if viOLet's really played against anything like this before, and it was the same thing that we saw in the GSL, where as you and I were casting it, we were saying, well, look, I mean, ByuN's a great player. I think everybody's kind of a fan of him. He's got a lot of charisma. He's got that cute puppy that he brought to the GSDL a long time ago. But even though he was a fixture at the GSL, he wasn't the guy that you would think when you look at the the lineup of 32 players, this is the guy who's going to win. But then he just kept out maneuvering people, and I think we're seeing it again right here, right now at WCS.
Well, he's showing his pure power. Like, you have to be able to live through that. You have to be able to if you're going to have a chance to win BlizzCon, because ByuN is here to test you with it. And so far, viOLet has failed against that. I hope that he can put up a better fight this next game. I would like to see him maybe mix it up, not try to play, a standard game. And it looks like we're probably going to get our wish there, because the next map is going to be Dawson Station. And this one does not play out normally. I don't expect to see the same build from ByuN. And I don't expect to see normal play out of viOLet.
Yeah, this actually might be something that could benefit viOLet. I think it's going to have to be something pretty sharp, well timed out, well thought out, possibly very deceptive if he's going to take out ByuN. Also, I do feel like the longer the game goes on and the more tools that ByuN has at his disposal, that is always going to play into his favor. Even though viOLet is also getting all of his tech up, I think with somebody who's as basically perfect in moving around and microing, that's got to be something that is on viOLet's mind right now.
viOLet's a super good Zerg, but we don't generally consider him a top 5 Zerg in the world.
Yeah.
Like, he's I mean, he's super good, guys. Like, he's definitely one of the top Zergs in the world, but he's not like a Dark where I'm like, okay, Dark versus ByuN, let's see what happens there.
Yeah, it's it kind of feels funny to talk like that, but we are so close to crowning the world champion. We only have a few players left, but I do think there is a disparity in skill here. We'll see. Anyways, guys, this is game number 2, ByuN versus viOLet. All right, in the upper left, a GSL Codes champion. In the red, he is ByuN. In the bottom right, in the blue, he lost the first game. He has to win the next 2 now. He is viOLet.
All right, Dawson Station, crazy map. You're so close by air. It's wild. And this map takes a lot of creativity. People don't play on it as much. It gets banned a lot on the ladder. It gets banned a lot in tournaments. And it's so different from any map that we've ever had that you can't really take too many lessons you've learned on other maps and import them to here. So it should be an interesting game, and it's really hard to even predict what these guys are going to want to do against each other. Are they going to go for defensive plays to stop aggression? Are they going to want to go for aggression because there's so many ways to attack your opponent on this map? It's hard to say.
And by the way, I really want to point out that I absolutely love this map. I love maps like this. I love maps that really make you think. A lot of times in RTS, people want to do these cookie cutter, basic maps because they can do the basic strats they want to try out. But when you're at this level of play, we can learn so much about StarCraft having a map that's like this. That really forces the entire way that you look at the game and think about the game to change.
You have to think on your feet on a map like this because you're going to see a lot of new stuff.
Right.
With short travel distances and weird map layout. There's guys, there's 3 ways into your main base area. There's a gold right next to you. There's a ton of destructible rocks. Just the map gets reconfigured so often. You see here some of the entrances and rocks around the map that makes it weird. Like for viOLet's taking this gold base, right? But you can send a Marine or a Reaper, anything with range behind it, and mess with the drones. And it takes a long time to kill those rocks. So how do you deal with something like that? Is it worth taking the early gold base? These are all questions that you have to ask yourself each and every game.
And unlike a lot more standard maps, occasionally if something goes wrong early on, the entire game has changed. What parts of the map are accessible, where can you drop? So this is going to be very exciting to see how viOLet can play this out, because I think viOLet is a really bright player. And there's a lot of cool stuff that Zergs are figuring out on this map. Obviously there's a gold base there. That always, whenever you have a gold base on a map, you kind of got to nod towards the Zerg just a little bit because they always get their base up before their second base up, I should say, before the Terran does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's important to note. But then also just the fact that Zerg can, open up different avenues to counterattack on the map. And counterattacking is really something that is so heavily hinged on a Zerg win. More than the other races, I would say.
I need to point something out right now. I said at the beginning of this, I'm like, well, this is such a weird map. I don't expect ByuN to do the same thing, nor viOLet. Of course, viOLet's not doing the same thing. He's taking a quick gold base and whatnot. And we do see some harassment like I was talking about before here on the gold by the Reaper. But ByuN is actually going for the same build he always does, it looks like.
Well,
maybe not. Maybe not. He got the quick double barracks and is getting the fast stim, but we don't actually see a
starport, right?
Instead, he's going for siege tanks. Okay, so it looks like he just wants to do a very early push with siege tank marine.
So when Zerg get the gold base, not only are they getting more minerals, but they actually, in some cases, don't need as many drones.
Yeah,
because they're getting an income so much more quickly than their opponent, and so. When you have that, Zerg has two options. They either take more bases and then really power up, or they have the ability to make a lot of attacking units and be aggressive even. We already saw this yesterday on this map as well. So let's go ahead and see how this push works out here for ByuN. This is going to be one of those moments where we'll probably, at the end of this, definitively know what you can and can't do, with certain builds.
Yeah. viOLet, he does have the gold base. He ran around to the side and sees that there's a siege tank and will be going for a drop here. I believe there's queens in that Overlord. So, yeah, four queens and then a bunch of Zerglings. This is kind of old strat from Legacy of the Void.
This is like
what he'll be able to get done
the
with
early
it.
Zerg cheese strap, but I don't know if this is going to do. They're going to land literally, almost exactly. I think a stim might be wrapping up here.
With multiple siege tanks, it's hard to imagine this doing too much. Like, yeah, he can get some of these peripheral buildings, like the supply depots, maybe that reactor, but these queens, even with transfuses, are going to have a hard time against those ranged siege tanks.
And Stim just now finishes up here with Medivacs on top. I think that was. I don't know, guys.
Yeah, he tried this kind of cheesy strategy, which we've seen it work this weekend on this map. But that was against Protoss and not against someone who already had a couple siege tanks out. So that was a lot loss.
I want to talk about the idea behind a strategy like this, if I can. When you see this done against Protoss, it's strong because the Protoss really have to wall in. They're using Adepts a lot of time to poke out. And Adepts are not that fast. They can't get back home immediately. And Protoss want to tech very quickly. Against Terran, since your backbone unit's the Marines, landing here right around when Stim's going to finish up, and you have siege tanks out, this is normally why you don't see Terrans attacked early on. It's for this exact reason. Even with drop, nowadays you can juggle tanks anywhere.
The long range and the splash of these siege tanks so powerful. Now ByuN with that counterattack, going after this gold base, just microing its heart out, picking off queens, picking off a lot of Zerglings as well. That siege tank actually being attacked by Zerglings over on the other side. The Marines trying to take out all these queens. In fact, they will, but the medevac does go down, so they won't be healed anymore.
Yeah, and this is ByuN micro here. It's those are all pretty squishy Marines, but it's not going to be enough. GG, wow, short and sweet series.
Yeah, that was really fast. It was really one-sided. viOLet tried to pull a fast one there on ByuN in that second game, but ByuN, he did something he doesn't normally do, which is super fast siege tanks, and that super helped him out against the drop.
And I also want to mention, before we went on to map number 2, we were saying viOLet will probably try to do something sneaky on this map, and he tried to do something sneaky. It just didn't work out. It backfired and ByuN won, but I think that was probably the wisest approach, maybe not the best strategy to do, but definitely the idea behind it was probably correct.
He had to try
a matchup like this.
Something like that. And we see ByuN super happy with it.
He can't
it's
hide
kind
his
of funny.
contentment.
Yeah, like this guy is always very, very happy after a victory, and he wants to win BlizzCon badly. He knows he's of the level where he is absolutely one of the top contenders.
You win a Codas, man, you can win a BlizzCon for sure.
That's right.
We are going to go to a short break, and when we come back, we're going to go with an interview with Smix and see how ByuN's seeing. Stay tuned, guys.
heroes of the storm. Prepare for Heroes Brawl, the new game mode that breaks all the rules. Rated T for teen.
The analysts said that they thought the favorite for this match would be ByuN, and they were correct, as ByuN, in a very dominant victory, takes a 2-0 over viOLet. So first of all, congratulations, very convincing victory from your side. Obviously, this was a first easy match for you, and just I'm wondering, looking at this group, when you knew who the players that you'd be facing would be, with viOLet, Showtime, and Deer in your group, how did you feel about that group overall? 일단 이 조의 선수들 봤을 때 어떠셨나요? 이제 쇼타임, 백동준 선수, 그다음에 김동원 선수를 만날 수 있었는데 그냥 기분이 어떠셨나요?
일단 이게 16명 글로벌 파이널 16명 오잖아요. 여기 16명 다 잘하는 선수라고 생각하는데 다른 조에 비해서는 그나마 낫다고 생각했거든요, 오늘. 근데 앞 경기에서 쇼타임 선수가 백동준 선수를 좀 깔끔하게 이기는 거 보고 갑자기 좀 어려워진 것 같아요.
So he says, first of all, at this WCS Global Finals, I do believe the 16 players that are here right now are all very good players. That being said, I did feel compared to the other groups that my group was a little bit better. However, I saw earlier that Showtime was able to defeat Deer in a very convincing looking 2-0. So I suddenly thought, okay, maybe this isn't as easy as I might have thought. So let's just jump right into talking about Showtime then. I know that maybe you sounded surprised that he defeated Deer in a 2-0. So were you expecting that Deer would be able to crush him, and now does that worry you at all? 방금 좀 그것 때문에 걱정된다고 했잖아요. 그러면 백동준 선수가 쇼타임을 그냥 쉽게 이길 거라고 생각하셨나요? 그리고 그 결과 때문에 혹시 걱정이 되나요?
일단 그 쉽게 이길 거라는 생각은 절대 못했는데 그냥 박빙일 거라는 생각은 했는데 질 줄은 몰랐거든요. 그리고 그 백동준 선수랑 승자전에서 만나면 저도 기회가 있잖아요. 근데 패자전에서 만약에 제가 오늘 방금 졌으면 패자전에서 백동준 선수랑 만났을 텐데 그럼 좀 많이 어려웠을 것 같아가지고 오늘 지금 이겨서 다행인 것 같아요.
So he says there were a few things going on in my head. It's not that I definitely thought that Deer would win. I did think it would probably be a good series. I just didn't think he would lose. And that being said, I did get stressed out when I saw that Deer lost, because I thought, okay, if I also lose, then I would have to face Deer in the losers match. And so that stressed me out. So I am very relieved that I was able to win in my first match today. And for my last question for you, a lot of people are looking at you as a favorite to win here at the WCS Global Finals. I'm wondering, does that put any sort of additional pressure on you, or are you just not trying to think about that at all? 마지막 질문은, 많은 사람들이 변현유 선수를 되게 좀 유력한 우승 후보를 보고 있는데 그런 것 때문에 좀 부담감이 훨씬 더 많이 받으시나요? 아니면 그런 생각 별로 안 하려고 노력하고 있어요?
근데 저는 누가 기대를 한다고 해서 부담을 가지는 스타일이 아니고 항상 기대를 안 해도 저는 혼자 부담을 가지고 있거든요. 하기 전에도 오늘 지면 어떡하지? 그러니까 항상 부담을 가지고 있기 때문에 저는 뭐 익숙한 것 같아요. 괜찮아요, 저는.
So he says, honestly, that doesn't affect me. If people are seeing me as a favorite, I'm not even thinking about that, because even when they don't look at me as a favorite, I'm being nervous all by myself. So whether it's today, tomorrow, I always feel like I'm always stressed out thinking about myself and whether I'm going to win or lose. So because of that, I'm not really thinking about other people. I'm just in a whirlwind of thoughts by myself. But looks like you're starting off the day well. So congratulations again, ByuN. It looks like the analysts were correct. So let's see what they have to say about that quick series.
It was indeed quick. He didn't disappoint, I think, the way to say this. He really didn't disappoint. We built it up, and he really did deliver. A fantastic series from ByuN, and that was over. I mean, I tried to get myself a cup of coffee, and by the time I come back, it was over.
This segment could be longer than his series, actually. We could talk more about his series than he played.
And you expected, from what he did, how he did it, what we expected from viOLet, it all was there, and it all came true.
Like, it comes down to not only the insane amount of practice. There's no way that ByuN hasn't faced things like that queen drop onto San Station. I think any Terran player who doesn't veto that map has seen that. His preparation for everything was extremely solid. The 2-1-1 that we saw him bust out, it's the gold standard. He's the one who said it. He's the one that busts this out almost every single game you see him play versus Zerg. And it doesn't really matter what you do about it because he's going to execute so much better than you. There's pretty much nothing you can do to stop him anyway. Like there's so few people on this guy's level. Like it was always going to be just viOLet getting run over.
But I still want to give a shout out to him actually slightly adjusting his build on Dasan. It's like, oh, you know, Dasan, I could do my regular stuff, which, you know, in a crazy build, ByuN would probably still be able to defend whatever he's facing, but still making that minor adjustment, having a quicker tank, realizing that this is a very different type of map, needs to switch up his builder a little bit. I mean, flawless, right? Like, what can we say?
I mean, I think it's very good for all the viewers as well because everyone's saying that he's the favorite, and for him to come in and smash a player like that, it really does reinforce that he is here to win the championship.
Yes. I'm not ready to take it too far because I do think this was the biggest mismatch yet. We've had, that was the 8th match now that we've seen so far, and of the 8, that was the most mismatched one. I'm very curious to see how viOLet progresses because viOLet against Deer, ZVP a little bit more of an equal matchup, at least on paper. But was Deer actually outclassed, or is Deer struggling a little bit? And is viOLet as bad? It seems so rough to say it that way, but is viOLet as bad as we think he looks? A lot of times when you face that god tier player, you can be made to look very silly.
Especially in that matchup, right, in TVZ, because there's so much micro potential in those fast Marines. And I mean, ByuN has all the tools to save every unit, at least for quite some time. And he will, because he is that good. So I do agree with Jeff there. In CVP, it's a little different. You know, Protoss will make kind of an obvious attack, maybe with some adapts. viOLet is going to defend. He will be able to at least get up to 3-4 bases comfortably and then take the game from there. So then I think we'll see a lot more from viOLet, and hopefully it's going to be a lot better as well.
Yeah, so viOLet will be playing in just a couple of hours for you guys at home. He'll be playing in the elimination match very shortly against Deer. That's us done for this. There's not really too much else to talk about, sadly, for that series. It was a really, really fast one. But that does mean that we're going to be going into the next group, where we're going to be seeing TY going up against Nurtio to start this one. Do remember, though, really briefly, to check us out on social media. Use the hashtag WCS2016. Do go to the YouTube channel /StarCraft. And if you haven't seen all the WCS Signature Series, this might be a good time to go have a look at the ones you've missed. That's us done for now. It's time to go to a break. Then it's the TY versus Nurtio.